The restaurant lights shimmered like tiny stars caught inside glass chandeliers. But to Emma, everything felt dim. Her heart thumped as she stared down at the single $5 bill she had folded neatly in her palm. It was all she had. Not $5 left for the day, not for the week, but for everything. Rent was overdue, her shoes had worn holes, and she hadn't eaten a proper meal in 2 days. Yet here she was, sitting at a polished wooden table inside one of the fanciest restaurants in town, about to go on a blind date. A blind date she wasn't even sure she could afford to survive. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of good hearts, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your one click helps spread hope through stories like this one. Emma had never planned to end up here. Just a few months ago, she had a small apartment, a stable job at a bookstore, and enough peace to sleep at night. But when the store shut down and the owner disappeared without paying the last month's wages, everything crumbled. Her savings vanished with rent and bills, and job hunting brought rejection after rejection. So when her best friend, Julia, insisted on setting her up with a kind guy she'd met online, Emma reluctantly agreed. Maybe it'll distract you, Julia had said. Who knows? Maybe he's the one. But as Emma sat nervously, running her fingers along the chipped edges of her thrifted purse, doubt clawed at her. Her blind date was already 20 minutes late. The waiter approached her politely, his smile too professional to hide his impatience. "Would you like to order something while you wait, miss?" he asked. Emma felt her cheeks burn. She knew this place. The Crystal Garden wasn't meant for people who counted coins before every purchase. She looked at the menu, her heart sinking at the prices. Even the simplest drink cost more than her entire meal budget for a day. "I'll just have a glass of water," she said softly. At the next table, a man noticed her. He was dressed in a tailored navy suit, his watch subtle but clearly expensive. His name was Ethan Carter, a name known in the corporate world, a self-made CEO of a logistics company, widowed at 35, and father to a 7-year-old daughter named Lily. Tonight wasn't meant to be a night of business for him. He had promised his daughter a fancy dinner after her school recital. But when Lily had fallen asleep early, he came alone, more out of habit than desire. And that's when he saw her, the girl with nervous eyes, holding a $5 bill like it was a shield. She was out of place in this world of fine wine and polished cutlery. But something about her felt genuine, real. Unlike the shallow, self-assured people he met daily, Emma looked fragile yet strong, like someone who had been through storms but was still standing. Ethan watched as Emma kept checking her phone, pretending to scroll, trying to hide the tremble in her hands. When the waiter came back again, she finally whispered, "Can I get the cheapest pasta you have?" Her voice cracked slightly, and the waiter gave a sympathetic nod before leaving. Minutes stretched like hours, still no sign of her date. She tried smiling at couples nearby, pretending not to feel invisible. But when the waiter returned and placed the small bowl of pasta in front of her, she noticed something strange. He didn't leave a bill. Instead, he simply smiled and said, "The gentleman at the next table has already taken care of it." Her eyes widened. She looked over, and her gaze met Ethan's. He didn't smirk, didn't flirt. He just gave a quiet nod and returned to his meal. That simple, wordless act broke something inside her. Gratitude flooded her heart, mixing with humiliation and relief. She whispered, "Thank you," though she wasn't sure he could hear. Emma ate slowly, savoring every bite. For the first time in weeks, she felt human again. When she finished, she stood to leave, but Ethan's voice stopped her. Gently, "You shouldn't leave without dessert," he said, his tone soft and kind. She hesitated, unsure whether to stay or run. But something in his eyes, calm, fatherly, unassuming, made her sit again. They talked for hours that night. Emma told him bits and pieces of her story, never mentioning just how bad things truly were. Ethan listened more than he spoke, and when he did speak, it wasn't with pity, it was with understanding. He told her about his late wife, about raising Lily alone, and how loneliness sometimes echoes even in the busiest lives. Two strangers, sitting across a candlelit table, found a small island of peace in a sea of chaos. When Emma finally stood to leave, she expected the moment to fade like a dream. But Ethan surprised her again. "There's a community job fair tomorrow," he said, slipping a small card toward her. "My company's hiring. Come by. No promises, but I'd like you to try." That night, Emma cried quietly on her bus ride home, not because she was sad, but because someone had finally seen her, not as a burden, not as a failure, but as a person worth helping. The next morning, she woke early, washed her only neat outfit, and took the bus across town to Ethan's company headquarters. The office was enormous. Glass walls, shining floors, and people who looked like they belonged in magazines. She almost turned back twice, but something in her heart whispered, "Try." When she entered the recruitment room, Ethan wasn't there, but his assistant was expecting her. "Mr. Carter said you'd be coming," she said kindly, handing Emma an application form. "He asked us to make sure you're treated like every other candidate." That line, "like every other candidate," gave Emma courage. She aced the written test, stumbled during the interview, but her honesty shone through. The next day, she received an email that changed everything. "Welcome to Carter Logistics. You start Monday." Emma threw her hands over her mouth and cried. It wasn't just a job, it was dignity, stability, and a fresh beginning. Working there wasn't easy. The days were long, the pace fast, and the learning curve steep. But Emma poured her heart into everything. She stayed late, volunteered for difficult projects, and always treated everyone with respect. People began to notice her sincerity. And Ethan, though her boss, treated her no differently than anyone else. Yet whenever he passed her in the hallway, there was a quiet smile in his eyes, as if he still remembered the girl who had once sat nervously with $5 in her hand. Months passed. Emma's life began to rebuild, one paycheck at a time. She moved into a small apartment, bought groceries without fear, and even managed to send a little money to her younger brother for his studies. But fate wasn't done intertwining their paths. One evening, Ethan invited the entire office to a charity gala his company hosted annually. Emma hesitated to attend. It was a high society event, but with encouragement from her colleagues, she went. When she arrived, she looked stunning in a simple navy dress she had found at a thrift store. Ethan noticed her instantly. She looked confident now, yet her eyes still carried that same humility that had first caught his attention. Throughout the evening, he found himself drawn to her, not out of pity or impulse, but admiration. Later that night, as speeches ended and music filled the hall, Ethan found her standing near the balcony, looking up at the city lights. "Enjoying the view?" he asked gently. She turned, smiling. "It's beautiful," she said. "It's strange how life can change so much. A few months ago, I couldn't even afford dinner." Ethan's expression softened. "You earned everything you have now, Emma. I just happened to be at the right table." For the first time, she laughed, not nervously but freely. And Ethan realized something he hadn't felt in years: hope. In the following weeks, they grew closer. Ethan invited her to meet Lily, his daughter, who immediately took a liking to her. Emma would sometimes visit on weekends, helping Lily bake cookies or read stories. The three of them became something unexpected, an unlikely trio that felt more like family with every passing day. But Emma still feared the world's judgment. She didn't want to be seen as the woman who climbed through pity or chance. So she kept her distance professionally, though her heart had already surrendered. Ethan respected that. He never pressured, never assumed. He simply showed up, kind, patient, and steady. One evening during a company dinner, Ethan stood to give a short speech. He thanked his employees, praised their resilience, and then said something that made Emma's heart stop. Sometimes, he said, kindness finds you when you least expect it. I once met someone who reminded me that small acts can change entire lives, that even when the world overlooks someone, one simple gesture, a meal, a chance, a kind word, can rewrite their story. He didn't say her name, but everyone could feel the emotion in his words. Emma blinked back tears. She knew he was speaking to her, not as her boss, but as the man who had once quietly paid for her dinner and unknowingly changed her future. A few months later, Ethan invited Emma and Lily to dinner again. This time, not at a luxurious restaurant, but at a cozy little cafe by the lake. The same kind of simple place Emma had always loved. They talked, laughed, and watched the sunset melt into the water. And just before they left, Ethan reached across the table, his voice calm, but full of meaning. You once came to dinner with $5, he said softly. Now you've brought me something worth more than anything money could buy. A reason to smile again. Emma's eyes shimmered. The tears she had once shed for pain now fell for gratitude. Life had come full circle. She had started with $5 and found something priceless: kindness, hope, and love.